can applaud. You can applaud for dinner. I'm going to be brief because there's a whole bunch of program still ahead of you, and I retrospectively yielded much of my time to Senator Booker, who I know has gone, but gave an amazing speech, an inspiring talk about a lot of things. One thing, if you see him later, you should tell him I'm not going to become a vegan. But he and I have some things in common because I too, once upon a time, was totally ripped. Super chiseled. I used to be 6'3". When I went on airplanes, nobody sat next to me either. I think it's probably different reasons. So, I'm here because I support SABA and have from the beginning. This is an organization that I think is very special, not just because it's a group of lawyers, but it's a group of people who care about issues and care about people and care about the country and care about professional development. And so I have always tried to come to this event when I've been invited, in part because I've gotten a lot of support from you folks. When I was nominated to be the U.S. Attorney, there was a lot of support. When I was in the Senate, working on issues related to legislation and other things, there was a lot of support. So I feel a lot of love to channel Senator Booker again. A lot of love from this group, and I'd like to give it back. During the cocktail hour, a number of folks came up to me, and I appreciate the interest they have taken in what has become of me. You know, what are you doing? Like, do you have like a job type job? And have asked me about what's going on at the border and what I think about the state of affairs in Washington and whether or not I might enter politics. But the question I got most often was, what is that on your face? So it's a beard, which has caused some controversy in various corners, including in my family. I don't know why it's controversial. I'm basically culturally appropriating my own culture. The fact of the matter is that one of the things that I've been doing for the last year is I've been writing a book. It's just really hard, because there's a lot of words that go into a book. And my deadline, I know Knopf is publishing it, and it's a book about how I think about justice, and you should all buy it. Please buy it. And it's due in like 10 days. And I literally have been on hiatus. The podcast it was a repeat this week. Next week I'm off. I pre-recorded the last 4 podcasts so that during this period of time, I could just work on the book. I don't even have time to shave. The only public event that I have done and agreed to do during this 2-week period is this event. Also because it's really close. So I spent like 9 or 10 days at once not doing anything but writing the book, and lo and behold, when you don't have time to shave, like all of a sudden, you get this growth on your face, if you're a Punjabi. But I made the mistake of not warning my parents, and so one of the things that I do is I'm a senior legal analyst on CNN, so I appear on television sometimes and answer questions. And my parents, who claim to love me very much, they watch every appearance. I text them and I tell them I'm going to be on Wolf Blitzer or Anderson Cooper, and I usually get a review from them, shortly thereafter. They'll tell me if I look like I'm tired, or, are you eating? They tell me if I look skinny or fat. And so, after I've had this hiatus working on the book and letting this happen, I went on Wolf Blitzer, and my dad, so I'm going to read to you the text I got. This is 100% true from my father after he saw me with this, quote, "I could not listen what you are talking." It's 100% true. "I could not listen what you are talking, just watching your face." What happened? You didn't have time? Or do you want to look like that? So I love my dad a little bit less after that. He doesn't understand the cultural appropriation thing. So that's my explanation. Look, there has been a lot that has gone on in America over the last few months. You could say that about the last few days. And it's confusing to a lot of people. I think one of the reasons it's amazing to have this group together is to think about the ways that lawyers can make a difference. And whether you're talking about the issues of the border or the vacancy on the Supreme Court, there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of concern, and so for example, just a few days ago, there are a lot of people who are nervous and anxious about the fact that Justice Kennedy has decided to retire, effective a few weeks from now. And there's a lot of polarization in the country, and a lot of people, and I get it, a lot of people are upset about the fact of this vacancy, given some of the history with respect to a prior seat on the Supreme Court. And so there are folks who think it's unfair that there has been a miscarriage in some ways with respect to the court, because when Obama was president, there was a great American who had a rightful place on the court after Justice Scalia passed away. And I share that anger and that concern because a great American was robbed of his seat on the Supreme Court. I too am annoyed that Sri Srinivasan was not given his rightful seat on the court. He's right here, by the way. You should say hello to him. Merrick Garland is not here. That's why I made the joke about Sri. Look, I just want to congratulate this organization. Congratulations on 15 amazing years. You're in the middle of your teen years now, so you're probably very good at rolling your eyes at your parents. Soon you'll be drinking. Good luck with that. Look, I think, to echo another thing that Senator Booker said, completely correct. We put a lot of faith in this country because we have this idealized view that there are certain kinds of special people who will lead us out of harm's way. That there are certain kinds of heroic leaders, and maybe Senator Booker is one of them. Maybe he'll be our next president. I don't know. But he's right to say that heroic leaders don't mean anything unless other people who go about doing their jobs, who are not in public service necessarily, who don't have political clout, who don't have political power, join together to try to solve problems that are in need of being solved. The issue on the border is one that upsets me a lot. I know it upsets a lot of people, and probably people in this room in particular, because most of us are very recently immigrants, or the children of immigrants. And so I was a prosecutor, and I prosecuted immigration crimes. But the idea that you're ripping apart families at the border on the guise of a misdemeanor, when the potential punishment, because people in government are so incompetent and not looking into the future, that the punishment for a misdemeanor, for someone who is seeking to come to the country to gain asylum because they're fleeing something that's terrible in their own country in Central America, that the punishment for that could be separation from your child forever is unconscionable. It's extraordinary, and I don't know that there's any other analog or example of that in recent times in the country, and that's where people like you come in. So whenever bad things happen, you can clap for yourself. So I always like to say, when bad things happen in the country and in the world, it's sad and depressing and causes you to be upset. But then there are things that happen to counter that cause me and hopefully other people to feel hopeful and optimistic. And so this issue with the border, maybe there were heroic leaders who went to the floor of the Senate and made speeches, or who went on television and talked about it. But this remains the one thing, it's not fixed, but the President of the United States reversed a portion of the policy on separation. It is the only thing that I'm aware of that the President of the United States at this moment reversed himself on in a year and a half almost of doing a lot of crazy stuff that he never apologizes for, he never switches course on, he doubles down on. The one thing that I can think of since he became president that he at least a little bit reversed course on was this. And the reason for that was not because, a couple of senators got up and made a speech, but was because the issue touched the hearts and minds of tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who all said, this is outrageous, this is unconscionable, and we can't permit it. And so I joined with Senator Booker in saying that change comes when people join together in solidarity about things that they care about. When they take the effort to go and speak, or march, or vote, and do other things, organizing themselves to fight for what they believe in. And I think that this organization exemplifies that in all the ways that you support causes that you believe in and do things that you think are right. I have had the great fortune of being able to speak at law school commencements, and I gave 3 commencement addresses this past season. And I said different things to each of the schools, but one thing I said to all of them, and I ended each one of those addresses in the same way. And I love to talk about public service. I spent 18 years in public service myself. I cared so much about public service that I was prepared to serve this president with whom I disagreed on a lot of stuff because I thought that the work was important. And if given the opportunity, I would serve in an independent way in almost any circumstance. Then I got fired, so I couldn't do it anymore. So I love to encourage people to engage in service. But the extraordinary thing right now, and everybody, whether you're a doctor or a nurse or a coal miner or an engineer, whatever you are in life, or a stay-at-home mom, there are things you can do to serve. But there's something very special at this moment in being a lawyer. And I have for a long time, the first speech I ever gave to SABA, I talked about how maligned our profession is. It's easy to, lawyers suck, right? They talk too much, they argue too much, they sue too much, they engage in sharp practices, and that's, true from time to time. But lawyers have a lot of power. And the thing that has been amazing to me is how much in need people are of lawyers at the moment in 2 ways. So I used to have this great job. I used to have subpoena power. I used to be able to arrest any of you. And it bums me out a lot, because there are a couple of people that I've been thinking about. So I do this podcast, which I thought was just an interesting way to talk about issues that I cared about, and I thought, my family would listen to it. Hundreds of thousands of people listen to it. And part of the reason is people want to know how to think about the law. They want to know how to think about the rule of law. They want to know how to think about the Constitution. And the most gratifying emails and texts and reviews I get are, thank you for calmly describing how you think the law works and how it should work. That's an extraordinary thing at this moment. The second thing, more than talking, is the doing. And at this moment, whether you have the crisis on the border, or when the travel ban happened, and people went to the airports in the New York area, but not just any people, lawyers went. And lawyers from law firms around New York City and every major sort of legal hub in the country raised their hands and said, we want to help. The ACLU has had a bonanza in fundraising, and it's a bunch of lawyers, the ACLU, right? Because people now understand and feel for the first time that I can remember in a long time that lawyers are there to help. They're there to make people and people's lives better. They're there to make sure that we are adhering to the ideals of the country that so many of us came here in hope of having a better life in. That's a crazy thing. That lawyers are so in demand, lawyers are so admired, lawyers are so needed. So the way I did every speech this past season was to say basically that there has been no more important time to be a lawyer in this country than now. Good lawyers have never been more important than now. The rule of law has never been more important than now. And great leaders have never been more important than now. And that means all of you in this room. Congratulations to SABA. Enjoy the rest of your day.